Coach, welcome into a special episode of The Hours. We've got an exciting announcement for you. So, this is a bonus episode that we are happy to announce. Tyler, do you want to do the honors here?
Yeah, so we are going to do a collab episode with JP Nerbun of Thrive on Culture, TOC Coach, and three things to look forward to. One, I learned a lot from him. So will you. Two, there's references to DVDs and newspapers. So there will be a nice bit of nostalgia. And three, there's an exercise that we're going to ask you to go through as a coach at the end. So stick around to the very end and check that out.
Yeah. Coach, what this means for you is just more tools, more support, and a bigger network of coaches that you can plug into. We'll get you all the details. If you are interested in joining us in your coaching journey and have us walk alongside you, reach out. There's going to be a lot of exciting things coming your way, and it starts with this episode right now.
All right, fellas, I feel like it's a Venn diagram to fully understand how our paths have crossed here. So I'm excited for this episode because we're going to unpack for our listeners a little bit about how this partnership has come to existence. But first, I want to start with you, Tyler, and just kind of go a little bit back into your journey around how you even got to the point where you started Savvy. You used to work at PGC basketball. I went to PGC as a young camper. PGC and their work with coaches became really influential in my leadership journey. What really drove you to start Savvy?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I actually didn't know that you actually went as an athlete yourself to PGC. I just thought you got involved as the coach. That's amazing. I also went as an athlete summer before my senior year of high school with Dick DeVinzio, the founder of Point Guard College, the author of, books that are on my bookshelf that I read many, many times. Stuff good players should know. Think like a champion. And little known smart moves. You can't buy it in many places. You can still get on eBay, but I highly recommend Smart Moves. That's where Dick DeVinzio teaches you how to write a poem and to make love. So you might want to check out Smart Moves at some point. I'll be real brief on this. I mean, PGC was so influential in my entire journey. First, as a young man, as Dick DeVinzio kind of inspired me to think about the game differently. But then also, as I got out of college coaching, it really shaped my approach to coaching. It's where I was challenged by my longtime mentor, Mano Watsa, to become the best basketball teacher, not coach, teacher in the entire world. After a couple of years of working with him, he said, Tyler, I think you can be the best basketball teacher in the world. So go out and figure out how to do that. And then working with just an incredible team from Mono, TJ, Sam, just my longtime friends at PGC, and growing it from, when we took over 14 camps a year to when I left, we were doing nearly 200 camps a year. And really, it's just a story of impact. And that's really what fired me up about the work that we did at PGC was we were able to impact basketball culture and the way that the game is taught and played. And, when I decided that it was time to leave PGC and move on, it was really just a desire for greater impact. Over my time at PGC, we tallied it up one time. I was able to work with over 25,000 coaches and athletes coming through our PGC camps, which is really amazing impact. But the vast majority of those were athletes. And I realized that my heart was kind of turning from serving athletes to serving coaches. And it's when I started to develop these systems of lock left and race and space. And I knew I just had to go all in and serving coaches. And at that point, I developed a method for teaching and coaching the game, and knew that it needed to have its own just kind of space to grow. And so I started Savvy Coaching just over 3 years ago, and went all in on it. And so that is how we got here. But I mean, the single greatest influence in my thinking about how to coach was developed and assimilated through my experiences at PGC.
Yeah, what the cool part there is for me, I didn't really know what leadership was as an athlete until I went to a PGC camp.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And for the listeners that don't, in the basketball community, PGC probably runs, I would say, the best basketball camps in America,
Yeah.
For decades. Right. I went there as a rising senior in high school too. And yeah, it was incredible to understand how to lead. How do I create an environment as an athlete or as a coach where we can all just really enjoy what we're doing and where we're thriving. I would say that's probably what you've done really well, not just within from a basketball standpoint. I mean, you talk about the systems you have, but I mean, there's a bit of leadership and culture that you bring to your work at Savvy. What would that core of that philosophy be?
So here's the core of the philosophy as I experienced it over 20 years ago when I went to point guard college with Dick DeVenzio. Um, I have been to so many camps. I had played for multiple coaches. And when we first went into the gym, as I was a senior in high school, I'll never forget this moment. We walk into the gym and Dick DeVenzio had 120, basketball players there. He showed us what to do and why to do it. And then he went and sat down in a chair with no other coaches helping him. And he said, go. And all of us just looked at each other, flabbergasted, because we had never been in a sport environment where we were empowered to autonomously own our own journey. And that moment was when everything changed for me. It was like, oh, I actually have to I have to be opportunistic in this moment and lead myself. And savvy coaching is that. It is, how do we go from like a yelling and telling drill sergeant leader as a coach to how do we coach in such a way that we can actually make ourselves less relevant? We know we've done our job when we can be irrelevant. That's what a savvy coach is. A savvy coach isn't a coach that is elevated as the sage on the stage. A savvy coach is one that embraces being the guide on the side and making it about the players.
Yeah. And, it's, we've kind of covered our Venn diagram and how we've crossed. So we've actually even crossed paths. I mean, I remember speaking in Colorado when bumping into you, you were speaking at the same coaching conference. Mark, let's pull you in here. Tyler's been on the podcast before, episode 217. You were on the podcast, Coaching Culture podcast, episode 189 and I think 190. I've been in your environment. I remember years ago walking into your practice environment and it felt different in a really, really good way. Just the level of intensity, the focus kind of reminded me a little bit of that environment an athlete might experience at a PGC camp, as far as athletes locked in and just a lot of really high quality instruction. You went from high school basketball coach to starting courtside to then partnering up with Tyler. What drove you to step in and start courtside and then move into Savvy?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with you, JP. You recall walking into my gym, and I go back to thinking about how our relationship first started just years ago. I heard you on a podcast similar to this, and I was in the middle of planning a team retreat, and this was at like a point in my career where I'd been a head coach for a while, but I was still figuring things out. Like one of our principles that guide us in Savvy, the S stands for simplicity wins. I was still on that journey to like take away the confusion, resolve complexity, make things really simple. And I feel like I was doing that on the court, X's and O's. And I was like really hitting my stride with developing my style of play and my identity that I wanted my teams to play with on the court. But I was not equipped to develop an identity off the court. Like, what were our standards? What were our expectations? How was I going to hold my athletes accountable? And when I heard you, I was just inspired to reach out. And I remember our very first conversation on the phone. You did the classic at the end of the podcast. Hey, here's my contact information. Reach out if I can help. And I'm like, you know what? I never do this, but I'm reaching out to this guy because he's got something that I don't have, and that has always driven me. Is just be a lifelong learner. And now in my role, that's really what I love to do, is pay it forward. Like, how can I help other coaches have their best season yet, and share the tools and all the methods that you have taught me, that Tyler has taught me, that we use in Savvy. And so you helped me plan that retreat. I instantly just dove all in. It's like, how can I not hire JP to help guide my coaching journey? So working together, I remember you came into our gym, and I'm like, gosh, okay, this guy's coming in. I have no idea what to expect. And you were very nice to compliment my practice, which we did take a lot of pride in our practice, but man, have they changed. The A in Savvy stands for adversity strengthens, and my practices were way too clean. Like, now we believe that messy wins, and adversity means that there's learning taking place, right? Like, you're probably getting stretched to do something better. when you walked into my gym, my practice was probably geared too much for me. It was probably too much of like, hey, this is going to make me feel good about where we are instead of this is going to stretch our players. So long way to say, I remember after that first practice, you came up to me and was like, hey, that was one of the best organizationally run practices that I've, seen, been a part of. And it was really, really clean. And I was like, yeah, like we were clean the day. And you're like, no, like, man, you got to get messier. Like your practices are way too clean. So I was kind of clarifying my identity. You helped me with like really kind of shape the way we practice, but more importantly, how to build our culture and bring those things to the floor. So I really just hit this like really cool stride, like a hockey stick curve of I'm clarifying my identity. I'm figuring out how to practice it and implement it, but also the culture part is really taking hold and our standards are showing up on off the court to where our success just went through the roof. I mean, we went 3 straight Final Fours and really that's how I got to where I am now. Is all that success led to coaches reaching out to me and just saying, hey, I love what you're doing. How do you do it? And they were really looking for the X's and O's, which is a part of it, but the messiness is a part of it too. And the culture is a part of it too. So I just like really fell in love and got fulfilled by sharing that with other coaches. So I started my own business while I was still coaching in high school and later in college. And I got out and so I got out of coaching and started doing courtside full time. Tyler and I bumped into each other for a second time, and we just started talking and sharing ideas, realized we were really aligned, and I hopped into SAVI coaching, and here we are.
There's a few things in that whole story that really stick out to me. One is like you talk about simplicity. I actually found the language that you use in your practice really like a complete foreign language, but all your players spoke the same language. You had all these, you're talking about, fingers and fan and rows. And like, I've been in basketball all my life. And I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? Are they playing something different here? But you were so dang good at the simplicity. I would say this is not a slight at you. There's probably brighter basketball minds out there and basketball wizards. But what I loved about you is how good you are at bringing it, making it really simple, implementable. I think that's what I've tried to pride myself on when it comes to culture. It's like, how do we make this that anyone can implement it, not have to be some sort of wizard or leadership and read 100 books on it. It's just, how do we bring it down to what is most important for people to implement? The other thing I'd say about you is that like you just probably more than any coach I've ever been around wanted feedback. You literally wanted me like on your shoulder, just in your ear, just saying, asking you questions, challenging you. Whereas like most coaches would be completely thrown off by that. So I love that part of just how you operate as a leader. And yet you kind of talk about how you went through this leadership journey of like, okay, you're at tactical, tactical. You're that, you're really sharp on that. But this leadership journey involves, I mean, how would you describe your leadership philosophy or your approach towards leadership today?
Well, I think it all started from the self-awareness that I was very transactional. I felt like wins were the measurement piece, and my job was to get my players to help us win more games. So I think when I just shifted my focus into like, you know what, this is really their experience. Like I might coach for 40 years. I ended up didn't. I thought I was going to coach until I was like 70 or 80. That changed very quickly. But I just started to realize that like, look, this is like a 4-year moment and we don't get to pick the moments they remember. We don't get to pick like what's going to impact them. So it just became like, how can I make this a great experience for everybody involved, not just myself? Because early on, I'll openly admit I was into coaching because I loved basketball. I did love coaching players and building relationships with players, but that was kind of a byproduct. That was a side thing. And then I just shifted that focus. So like, how can I just like make this an awesome experience for everybody, something that they're proud of. They want to be here. They have fun. We're building lifelong relationships. And I think the feedback that I got from a player, really multiple players on this team that I coached probably 2020, 2021, around there, was I just felt like one of them. I felt like more of a team captain. I felt part of the team instead of this like authoritative figure. Because I'm not super comfortable being that person. I just want to be like part of the team that's helping the team grow. So when I shifted my focus to more of like what experience can I give my players rather than what can I get out of them to help me win games, it's really what impacted me most as a leader.
what annoys me about the two of you is that, or just annoys, not necessarily about you, but is like, man, I would have won so many more games had I had you guys in my corner. Like, I look back to my days of coaching high school basketball in Tennessee, even in like Ireland. I did 5 years there and did a little bit of time over in Lithuania. And I'm like, man, I made it so complicated. I was all over the place. Right. When I went back and coached for like 3 months during COVID, and Mark, I hired you. I was like, dude, help me. I never felt more confident as a coach in the tactical aspect. But the beautiful part about that is like, it gave me the bandwidth to focus more on relationships and culture. And so I think that's what's kind of cool about Savvy is like, hey, it's not, yeah, there's a culture aspect and leadership aspect of that, but you're also helping coaches with the tactical and simplifying that part so that they can focus on the things that actually bring them meaning and purpose, right?
Yeah. Well, JP, let me just interject before we hear from you. Two things that I wanted to highlight. Let me start with the most recent one. That has been an unintended benefit that I think we've discovered as we do provide the technical and tactical support. It really does free coaches up to do the most important thing that only they can do, which is focus on the relationships with their players, the culture, and who they want to be. That's the identity. And, we think of, I think wrongly, often we do think of coaches as like a singular leader, often like leading from the front, blazing a trail, casting the vision. Coaching is incredibly lonely. And one of the unintended benefits is like of this savvy basketball community is you feel like you're on a team again. And, so often as coaches, we second guess ourselves. We go through adversity and issues with parents, assistant coaches, player relationships. Who do we talk to? A lot of coaches don't have an assistant coach that is a peer that they can talk to. And so this community of peers and, how I think Mark and I have been able to serve in our small sphere, these coaches, has given coaches the confidence to lead and the confidence then to build the culture that you have supported so many thousands and thousands of coaches with. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that, like the value of team as a coach is incredible. It's why I first reached out to Mark. I said, Mark, I like being on a team. Let's team up. It's why I think you and I and Mark reached out to each other and said, we like being on a team. Let's team up because it's more fun together. You can have greater impact together and you can create something together you couldn't create alone. So I just thought that was a really kind of beautiful through line.
Yeah, I love this aspect of the community too. I remember when I wrote my first article, it was actually for the newspaper. It wasn't for like a blog. And it was just around culture and character and how we got to be better about it as coaches. And I got published in the, Times Free Press, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee's like local newspaper. And I remember the instant feedback I got from other coaches going, man, I didn't realize you felt like this as well. Right. Like, and I wasn't just like calling people out. I was just saying, hey, this is something I struggle with. Like, I'm not sure I'm even having an impact with my players that I want to. I'm not sure that they are growing as people, and that was a really huge moment. So I love the aspect of community, and you all have built, in my opinion, one of the best online communities for coaches out there. I mean, it's just incredible the level of engagement out there, which is what got me really excited to bring you on board with what I was doing in my lane and like team up on this, like you said. It's just super, super beneficial. When you think about what we're doing here with TOC Savvy and TOC Coach, let's go around here. Let's just, all three of us can share. What's got you most excited about it right now?
Well, JP, do you want to maybe just frame, because I don't know that we've done that yet on this podcast, like what are we doing with TOC Coach? And then maybe we can share we're excited about it with everybody.
Yeah, I guess that's a great point. So what are we doing? So with TOC Coach, I mean, the evolution of how this kind of came to be is, as many people that listen to the Coaching Culture podcast know, that I have a huge amount of online courses and digital resources for coaches. Those are our 9-hour long certification course that takes a leader through developing their leadership philosophy to the culture system framework on how you establish, support, and enforce a culture, right? And anybody that's taken the time and made that commitment to go through that has just been like blown away by it, right? What we learned maybe 2 years ago was like, there's not a lot of athletic departments or coaches that have that time or are going to make that time. So we created another foundations course, which is an hour long. That's just, it's been released in, some states like Colorado and Ontario, where literally every new coach is being required to take that. And then we got a lot of schools that are rolling that out, having every coach take that before they start coaching. So we got a few other courses like working with sports parents and playing time that we've included in there. So I had all these courses, and about like 3 months ago, I was like, it is becoming really hard just like sell individual courses like I'm selling DVDs. I was just like, I was inspired by the Netflix model. Just like, let's simplify this from a structure for schools and for coaches of just all access, like you're paying for Netflix. But then I also realized there's a community aspect to this. If people are going through that, they're going to want to have conversations and discussion. And so that's where I reached out to Mark, was like, man, Mark, like you guys are crushing it. You have a really engaged community where people are being supported. Like you said, it is like every coach that joins, they aren't just getting great content and resources. They're not just getting a better way to run their offense or defense. They're actually getting a team, their own support team. So that kind of came this whole partnership of, hey, you all we join forces here. And now we've got this amazing content with a community that supports coaches wherever they are on their journey, whether they've been in for 30 years, whether they've been in for 3 months, right? And we have coaches already entering in going, wow, I wish I had this 30 years ago. And we got people going, wow, I'm so glad I've got this. I feel so much more confident stepping into my first head coaching job.
I feel like, I talked about myself being a lifelong learner. And then as I grew as a coach, wanting to pass that forward and help coaches just develop mastery and have their best season yet and learn all the things that I've been learning, because that's what gets me excited. It's like when I come across something new and I can implement it, that's what like really gives me juice. And if you're an older coach, you used to have to go to clinics and take the clinic notes and then go try and implement. Or if you're a coach around my age, you had the clinics, but then the DVDs started to come out. So you'd watch a DVD. And I remember watching a DVD and being like, all right, that looks really, really good. But what if that pass is denied? Like, what if we can't get the ball there? Then what do we do? It's like, I'm not going to call up Coach K and be like, hey, I got your DVD. What do we do if that pass on the wing's denied? So nowadays, if you don't know what a DVD is, email Tyler. He'll tell you. But
actually send me a letter.
That's right. Send him a letter. I love it. Okay. And then the younger coaches like YouTube, podcast, and they always reach out. In fact, I talked to a member yesterday, or a eventual member. He just joined yesterday, but before he's like, yeah, I was just trying to listen to your podcast and watch your YouTube stuff. And, we're a couple years in, I just feel like we're not like equipped enough as we need to be. And that's what the membership's for, is can you go through the course, but have a community where you can ask questions, in a place where if Tyler or JP or myself come across something good, or we experiment with a team and we find something that's really high leverage that really made a difference, we can share that with you right away. So I think when you combine the course element with the community, like that's where the real transformation happens. Tyler and JP talked about like having someone to talk to, because your problems are not unique to you. So now you've got a community of coaches to talk to. And, us, obviously, we drive the engagement. We always weigh in, but there's so much good engagement in our TOC coach community and our SAVI community. I'm really excited to see those two merge.
Yeah. All right. 3 quick things. One, we've referenced newspaper, articles, and DVDs. So for every one of our generation, you're welcome. Okay. It's not dead. This made complete sense to me, because Mark and JP immediately shared their why, which is impact and serve coaches. And neither of these guys really cared about much else. As long as we serve and impact coaches, let's do it. And because their whys were so aligned, for me, it was just a no-brainer. I'm like, we're going to figure this out. We need to serve and impact coaches in this way. As Mark has referenced, as we've honed in on basketball coaching in SAVI basketball, they come for the basketball and they stay for the culture. And we have served coaches well when it comes to culture, but we haven't served them as well as we could have. And that's what JP, you have been doing at a world-class level for a very long time. I've learned so much from you from afar. And I know that every coach in our community needs what you have built. And so that's why it was just a no-brainer. And then lastly and thirdly, why we are joining forces for TOC Coach is impact. Um, my journey went from, impacting one team to impacting athletes at PGC to impacting coaches that were basketball coaches. And my heart is now for a greater impact. I want to impact all coaches, and TOC Coach is for all coaches. So I'm just so excited to share tools in the art of coaching, of establishing standards, how to build culture, and how to really become a transformational coach through this avenue in this community of TOC Coach, which is really going to be above and an umbrella beyond what we've done at Savvy Basketball, for even greater impact. And so we are so pumped to bring all of our gifts and all of our experiences to build a community to serve all coaches and that are on this journey to become a more transformational coach, like Mark has shared. And that's what TOC Coach is. And so just thrilled to announce this to the world, to both of our communities, for those who listen to the Hours podcast as well. This is the start of something really good.
Yeah, if I could just speak to the impact piece just real fast, Tyler, you mentioned whenever you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I like being part of a team. What if we were a team? What I vividly remember in that text message that resonated with me is you said, could we have greater impact together? And that's just immediately I was like, yeah, the answer is probably yes. Without even thinking about it, we just had to make sure everything else made sense. But like you said, our whys, our vision were aligned of why we were doing this. And as I've learned these things from JP and have learned the Savvy method from Tyler, I've always wanted to share it with coaches outside of basketball. So when I was coaching, I would like needle the football coaches of like, hey, what if y'all didn't do so many drills all the time? What if y'all tried to gamify some things? Or our baseball coach was pretty forward thinking, so we were always sharing ideas. And what really again, what got me going is how could I apply these things to baseball or other sports? And it all transfers. Like, how do you practice? How do you communicate? How do you, like JP referenced our language, how do you develop language for your program? How do you simplify your systems? How do you implement standards? Like, all those things are across all sports. It's really the art of coaching. And Tyler and I have talked about on our podcast that what we are probably most passionate about at this point in our journey as a coach is the art of coaching, like how to do things better regardless of sport. And now we get this opportunity with TOC Coach. So that's really, really exciting.
There's a two points here. One is that thing that has me so excited is that we're moving from an informational experience to a transformational experience.
Mhm.
Like, so many people are just trying to sell and flood people's heads with information. And it's like, well, when do you need this information? And every coach is on a different place. So it's not everyone needs the exact same thing. And transformational experiences requires mentorship, coaching, people asking questions, people giving feedback, helping people to take new perspectives that they've never taken before. You can't do that, like provide a transformational experience, without relationship. Like, I think at the end of the day, all transformation comes by way of some sort of relationship. And whether it's with our players, whether it's coach to coach, like we look back at some of our biggest shifts in our thinking as a leader, as a human being, there's a relationship there. There's someone that spoke life into us, that asked us questions, that gave us hard feedback. So and the other aspect of this transformational experience is, this isn't just about me, Mark, Tyler. Like, you now have access to some of the best coaches out there. I mean, Nate Sanderson co-hosts this podcast for almost 8 years now. I mean, people are getting to have conversations with him on a daily basis, as well as other great coaches that are transformational and they're elite in their field. Olympic coaches, high level, high school and collegiate coaches, and even youth coaches out there. I mean, there's an under 10 soccer coach there, that's just absolutely crushing it, what he does with leadership and culture for a bunch of 9-year-olds. And he's in that community being able to share his ideas. So you're bringing some great people together, which just gets me absolutely fired up.
Yeah. And JP, I think one thing that we have learned in this community model is it really attracts the type of coach that we want to attract, but it also gives you as a coach an opportunity to both learn and teach. And that really is the cycle to truly internalize any new information that you want to add. You know, the lack or the deficiency of purchasing a course is it doesn't close the entire loop. And really, if you can close the loop by taking in information and then trying to actually teach and pass on that information to someone else that's maybe a few steps behind you on the journey, while still receiving feedback from someone that's a couple steps ahead of you on the journey, that is learning. And, you know, I think any coach that has done this for a long time and has grown in their coaching can look back on their journey as they had someone that they were being mentored by that was a massive impact influence in their journey. And they also can look with just like a great sense of pride that they mentored and paid it forward to someone else. And that's what we're trying to create with this community environment. That's why, you know, we aren't just selling courses, or we're not just speaking at clinics, or, you know, we're not just, you know, sending a DVD, right? That's why we chose this model. And so if you're the type of coach that wants to not just take the information for yourself, but also is looking for someone to pour into, like, this place is for you. TOC
Yeah.
Coach is for you. And I think that's Mark, I think you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I just, you know, you mentioned like a coach on their journey and they're wanting to learn something specific. I also think there's like this stage of a coach is like you kind of get that, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So there's probably coaches out there that are like, all right, I know I'm not a finished product. We never are as a coach, right? Mastery is never finished, but I know I'm not the coach that I can be, but I don't even know where to start. Like, seek and you shall find. Like, I think every time I've gone to our Savvy basketball community or our TOC coach community, I'm not looking necessarily for something specific, but I always get something. And that was my experience, honestly, with both of y'all. With JP, I thought I was going to get like just culture, like, hey, just help me build culture. And then this guy comes in and tells me like all these great ideas about how to practice better and how to get more transfer from practice to game. And I'm like, it's not even why I hired this guy for, but he's got all these tools. With Tyler, you know, instantly I'm like, oh, you know, like, I've heard Tyler speak at clinics and I'm aware of what he does. Like, I think we're pretty much aligned. Like, this will be pretty seamless. And then when I get in, I'm like, wait a second, he's got this whole other like array of tools that I haven't seen either. And it's like really enhanced me as a coach, as a person. And I didn't even know that I was going to get that. So if you're a coach that just, you don't know like what you need, what the next step is for you, I guarantee if you seek it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
There's another big thing I have to share that just gets me so fired up when I think about it. For years, I've been so frustrated for the coaches that I work with who are out there grinding, getting after it, doing the transformational coaching, and then yet there's just not the continuity in their school, in their club,
Yeah.
or even in their coaching staff at a collegiate level to be able to get everybody at least aligned in some capacity that we're all moving towards the same direction. And what this gives an athletic department, a club, is the opportunity to expose every coach in your program to resource, this resource that is going to give you the best stuff out there, the best conversations and on leadership and culture. You know, there's the savvy basketball aspect. There's going to be we'll talk more in a second around the savvy uh, approach that's going to be applied to other sports, and just so excited about that. But what we're helping athletic directors or administrators do is to be able to not just help transform a team, but an organization. And spoiler alert, like, I'm already like deep in it this 2 hours this morning, starting to, as I've been building out for the last few years here, this framework for athletes, right? And so there's going to be an element of this in the future for athletes within a club or school to develop their leadership. And then down the road would be for parents, because at the end of the day, we're about helping to organizations, programs, athletic programs transform their culture. And it's going to take everyone to start to shift their perspective and their approach. So that's a huge other piece of it for me that just gets me stoked.
Yeah. And so, quick summary, we want, if you're listening, we want to help you transform your entire department, your entire organization at the culture level. That's what TOC Coach is for. And it is so fulfilling. I'll give a quick example of that. We have our local basketball club, and we compete in AAU tournaments against all these other AAU clubs. And when parents or players experience our club, the number one thing that they talk about is not our race and space offense or our lock left defense. They say, it's so wonderful that how your gym feels. Our athlete is excited to go train. They look forward to going to practice. Like, you're so positive. Like, it doesn't matter which trainer, which coach, or which team that they're on, you're speaking the same language. It feels the same way, and you play fun, fast, and free. We, Mark, JP, and myself, want that for your program. It doesn't matter what sport they play. It doesn't matter what coach or what season that they're in, right? How it feels, the culture of your athletic department feels that way. It's where players and parents and other coaches want to be. That's how we want to transform the culture of your department, or help you transform the culture of your department. So that's really like the vision of this thing that gets me so excited. Is I want every stakeholder, player, parent, athlete that's a part of the athletic experience to have that positive experience, regardless of if you win the championship or not. And that's what I think that what TOC can do.
Yeah, so this is probably where I want to kind of finish up, right? You summarized it really well there, Tyler. But I want to go back to SAVI, right? And I know Mark, you've given us the S and the A, simplicity and diversity. But I would love for you to kind of finish that loop out there with what SAVI stands for, and how that SAVI model has not just helped basketball coaches be better at basketball, but how it's helped them in culture, and how that model could apply to other sports. Because I think there's so much value in your approach, your framework there.
I'm going to go back to one of our initial conversations, and we were talking about what were non-negotiable for us. If we were going to partner to impact coaches, one thing that you said was, hey, like, the name is really important, because it's not just a name. It's really 4 principles that I live by and coach by. So I'm like, all right, well, tell me more, because so many coaches just have these like quote unquote core values that they throw in the gym or on their shirt. So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, are you like 99% of the other coaches that say that but don't really do that? And instantly, like, these 4 principles are really standards. It's simplicity, adversity, victory, identity. Tyler's going to talk about each one of these, but these shape the entire way that we coach. When I talk about the art of coaching, SAVI will help you like design your systems, develop your players, and build your culture. So like, ultimately, SAVI is the method that we use to transform you and your program. So Tyler, you do an awesome job of just outlining what the acronym means and the application there. So why don't you give us a peek inside?
These 4 standards or lenses that I would encourage every coach to evaluate their program, their standards through, really fit into your coach's journey. So before I get to these 4 letters, let me just zoom out real quick, because I think we're all on a journey, a never ending journey as a coach. And our journey really does resemble a bell curve, right? Where you start out as a novice or beginner coach, and you don't know what you don't know, right? You're searching for answers, but you don't even know what sort of answer. You don't know what questions to ask, right? And that is a version of simplicity. And then as you start to gain more information and gain mentorship, and you kind of get to the top of this bell curve, you know a lot of answers. You have an abundance of knowledge, and you want everyone else to know how much you know. And so you provide so much complex information so that everyone knows how much you studied and how many hours you spent in your field. And so you have a very complex framework that you share with everyone. And then most of your players leave confused. And then as you kind of continue to develop, you kind of come down the other side of the bell curve, and you arrive at another version of simplicity, the version of simplicity that is achieved on the far end of sophisticated knowledge. And then the answer, you have one answer for nearly every question. And that answer is, it depends. And that simplicity, when you can develop your shared language that has room and space for the gray, for the it depends, That's the simplicity that we embrace as a savvy coach. The simplicity that comes on the other side of sophistication. You understand that simplicity wins when, like Mark said, your program has developed your own language that embraces a principled approach, not a tactical approach or a technical approach, but a principled approach that prioritizes the things that you really care about. That's what simplicity is. And there's 2 tests for simplicity I'll just share for you as a listener that you can maybe put your own coaching or your own program through. 1, 7-second sound bites. If you can't articulate your principles in 7 seconds or less, you haven't achieved simplicity yet. That's just the first step. Okay, that's the first test. So the second test is the 12-player test or the full roster test, depending on how many players you have on your team. If you can't line we'll say at 12, if you can't line your 12 players up outside your office and have them enter in one at a time and get the same answer to a core question, you haven't achieved simplicity yet. What do we want on offense? For us at Savvy Basketball, every player should say 9s and 7s, 9s and 7s. If all 12 players don't say 9s and 7s, you need to get more simple. You're too complex and players don't know what we're trying to get. So that's the simplicity lens. I will go faster, I promise. Adversity. Adversity strengthens. Mark already referenced this. Adversity is this. The job of a coach is not to force growth in their players. The job of a coach is to create an environment that then produces growth in your players. And that environment requires challenge, appropriate challenge. So when we coach like an artist, we're trying to shape an environment of challenge, adversity, and messiness, but the right degree that coaxes growth in the direction, in the way that moves towards our standards, right? The opposite of adversity is a really clean practice. A clean practice where there's no mistakes, where everyone's in straight lines, everyone's doing the same thing the same way. If that's what a coach sees as a successful training session, you're not yet a savvy coach. A savvy coach shapes an adverse environment because we all know that adversity strengthens. But too much adversity and you quit, right? Not enough adversity, you lose your high achievers. So shaping that environment is really what we embrace in adversity. Victory. Victory is defined. And as a savvy coach, we are data driven because we all know that our own perspective lies to us. We all have blind spots. And so we measure what matters and know that when we measure, we will see growth. I share this story a lot. I'll do it really quickly. This is an example of victory. My daughter and I do a morning routine. We do push-ups. For months and months and months, my daughter would do 10 push-ups every morning. We'd do our 10 push-ups, high five, and go our separate ways. Then one day, up on the whiteboard where we did our push-ups, she did 10 push-ups, and I wrote the number 10. I measured it on the board. She's like, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Oh, that's how many push-ups you did." Next morning, she comes in. Guess how many push-ups she does? 11. I erase it. I measure it. It mattered to us, so I measured it. And then over the course of a month, she's doing 30 push-ups. Improvement comes when you define your victory and measure it in a data-driven way. That's what victory is. Lastly, identity. And Mark and JP have mentioned this. This is really is the heart of TOC Coach, Transform Our Culture Coach, is we embrace an identity that is separate from our outcomes. Your identity is not your record. Your identity is not your wins and losses. Your identity is that you're a transformational coach and not a transactional one. Transactional is you players give me your efforts and help us achieve our goals and win a championship and wins and loss. And I will give you my knowledge and information. It's completely transactional. And the goal is the record, the applause, the social justification that you are a good coach. That's what a transactional coach does. We define our identity, our value through transforming individuals, through building deep relationship, for achieving a fulfilling sport experience, where of course we're battling and competing to win every game. But the success and failure of our leadership as a coach is not our win and loss record. It's in the hearts and minds and lives that we're able to impact and transform through this beautiful thing called sport. That's what identity commits. You commit to being a transactional coach. And we have to recommit every day because we so easily get distracted by our success. And so that is the SAVI framework and SAVI method that we then apply to our coaching.
I love it. And it's interesting because I'm already like, how can I use that framework to evaluate my current process on something that I've been thinking a lot about, which is transformational leadership in general, right? So I'm going to give it a go here real quick. We'll see if this even makes any sense. But simplicity, right? The transformational leadership journey, right? Simply is know yourself, lead others, lead the team. Too often as coaches, so that's it. That's under 7 seconds, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So too often we get that backwards, right? As a coach back in 2015, I'm like, okay, what are some cool culture building activities? I gotta go lead my team better, right? But I don't even know who I am as a coach. I don't even know what's important to me. I don't even know why I operate there. I think my identity is more about my personality and how I like to coach, my style, my preferences, right? So simplicity, love it. Adversity rings so much true to me. Like this journey from level 1 of self-knowledge to knowing yourself, leading yourself, down to leading others. It is not something you do by just reading a book and then like filling out the answers to questions and then you have done it. It comes through the journey, the adversity, which was the initial acronym for TOC was Thrive on Challenge, which came from Carol Dweck's book Mindset, was because I just knew like the challenge, the adversity was the growth of for me as a coach, right? So now TOC, we're changing up to transform our culture, like you briefly mentioned there, Tyler, but like love that. So adversity totally works for me. Victory, I think I talk about this in the book, The Culture System, is like having new measures of success. What do you want it to feel like? What do you want them to remember? Who do you want them to become? Looking at those factors and having different ways to look and assess, am I having the impact that I want? Are we getting the feedback at the end of the year? And if not, if our 360 feedback surveys and if we're just not getting that feedback that affirms those, then we're off target there. So the transformational leader has new measures of success to define victory, not just a scoreboard. And then lastly, identity. I mean, you already touched on it from a transformational coaching perspective. I'm going, hey, yes, winning matters, championships, going for it, striving to be our best, but we move less from a place of ambition that's around achievement, acknowledgement, authority, right? And we're moving place to a more selfless ambition, which is like impact, right? Am I having the impact that I want to have in there? And that becomes more of my legacy, or more comes down to the relationships that you have, a lot less driven on a daily basis by the wins and losses. You can still do both of those things, be driven by those things, but the transformational leader has a really, really clear identity. Like you said, it's beyond whatever the sport they coach.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The new measures of success is language that I definitely am going to adopt. That really resonated with me as a summary of what victory is. That's beautiful.
All right, let me play this game.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the SAVI method, but
and before Mark plays, like this is a real challenge. Like if you're listening, press pause and play this game. Journal tonight and play this game. Answer these 4 SAVI questions. SAVI. Play the game.
I would say even go deeper, like reach out to us. Tell us what the answers are and what you are struggling with, because that's what we're here for. All right. Simplicity for me on my journey, this is where I grew and I like to help coaches grow, is better is better. Like more is not better. So many coaches look for answers of what can we add? Like we're not getting the results that we want. How can we add things into this equation? Because that's the answer, right? Usually the answer is to eliminate things. That's the fastest way to growth. It's what we believe in at Savvy on so many levels. But think of your program as a big, massive block of granite or marble, and you're a sculptor and you're just stripping away all the things that don't serve you and your athletes. Bad shots, turnovers, blaming others, below standard behavior, whatever it is. If you can eliminate those things, that's the best way to grow. So better is better, more is not better. And we have to fight that, especially as a head coach. When you're the decision maker, oftentimes the easier decision is to add something. Adversity. I'm big on voluntary suffering. Like, how do we, Tyler mentioned it, like, how do we dial in the optimal amount of adversity so our players grow? I think what really resonates with me on a lot of levels is, like JP said, the thrive on challenge. He's got the mountains in the logo as well. Is like, why do people climb mountains more than once? Like, you've already got the view. Well, because the fun is like actually in the climb. We talk about the process or the journey actually being the reward. And when we talk about impact, kind of like skipping the identity a little bit of like what you're going to give to others. JP, I wrote down like the selfless ambition or like how you're going to impact those in your program. I think that is one of the best life lessons that you can teach as a coach, is to get your players to actually embrace hard things and to lean in the hard things, because they know the other side of that is they're going to become the person that they want to become. That's where the growth happens. And then victory. JP, what you talk a lot about is just behaviors, right? And what I added to my coaching toolbox that allowed for my sanity and that I could really embrace the process is focusing on behaviors. So some like ways to define victory or new measures of success is those behaviors. Like, what is our communication like? How many touches are we getting in a game? What does our bench look like during games? How do we transition from the locker room to the court? Like, all of those things are part of your culture. So if you're leaving culture in the classroom or the locker room and not bringing it on the floor, the best way to do that is just redefine what your victory actually is. The win is going to be on the scoreboard. Everybody's going to know whether you won or lost the game, but the victory is going to be what you actually define, or that new measure of success for your program. And then I kind of touched on identity for me, but my shift as a coach was really just like, what am I giving everybody here? What environment am I creating? Because the best thing that you can do as a coach is to be consistent. And if you do have true values that are guiding you and as a coach, how you interact with your players or athletes, how you make decisions for your program, if you know who you are, like JP said, then it's so much easier to have those decisions already made. Like Tyler, we were talking poker before we hit record, but like, you're already all in. Like, there's very little decisions that you have to make because you have such a clear identity of the coach that you want to be and how you're going to do that. So yeah, that's my attempt at the game. But I will double down. Speaking of gambling, let's double down on 11s always. And coaches, if you're listening to this, reach out. Send an email to all of us, and I'd love to hear your answers to the SAVI method.
Well said.
Love it. Well, I think we've come to a nice kind of close for today. I'm sure we'll be doing this again in the future. Closing thoughts, Tyler, Mark?
I'll go first. If this resonated with you, come check us out at TOC Coach. Link will be down below in the description, how you can join us either as an individual coach, or if you want to bring your entire athletic department, we got options for you. We'd love to see you in there and continue the conversation and really journey with you as you become a more transformational coach.
Yeah, my closing thoughts are just, this is going to be fun. It's already been great to work with these guys and to see the impact that they have had on coaches. I'm happy to be a small part of it. And like we said, your problems are not unique to you. So if you're looking for a better way, we don't have all the answers, but we do have a lot of experience to draw from. And these guys have a lot of expertise that we're eager to share with you.
Yeah, I'd finish off with just gratitude. Like, I'm gratitude for the two of you. I'm gratitude for the listeners of this podcast for almost 9 years now at this point. This has been, like, Tyler, you talked about the bell curve. I'm like, man, where am I in that? Like, at some point I'm like, I've just been learning so much from this experience, from this podcast, from my writing. Like, I didn't start from a place of knowing at all. I really was just like, how do I go learn? And so the thing, I'm just so energized about how much more am I going to learn this next 10 years. Working alongside the two of you has already pushed and challenged me in so many great ways. But just by being able to connect with more and more coaches, I think that's been the beauty. That's been my fastest learning, is I've had all these one-to-one relationships with so many coaches. I'd be talking to 15 to 20 coaches in a week sometimes. Now I'm going to be in a community of potentially thousands of coaches there that are sharing. They're all working together. So I'm super grateful for anybody that's, the two of you, and then anybody that's been a listener to this podcast, for Nate, all the followers, all the people that have been on this podcast over the years. It's been incredible. So
awesome. I'm grateful for you as well. I'm excited.
We usually sign off by saying stay savvy, but we'll like
I'm gonna say thrive on. Is that something you say?
Thrive on.
Thrive on. Thrive on.
Go buy your DVDs and read your newspapers.
And don't be a sage on the stage.
Thrive on, Savvy.